got the more favorable matchup in this one?
Yeah, I think something that both of them will probably like about seeing is that there's no Xerneas on the other guy's team. So yeah, both Yveltal and Rayquaza historically do not really like going up against Xerneas all too much. So both of them, so unlike the previous game where we had two Xerneas going up against each other and it was a lot about the Geomancy and so on, I think this time around it's going to be a lot about positioning. I'm not sure whether the Nihilego will make a huge impact here, seeing as Mega Rayquaza is faster and sometimes carries Earth Power. Yeah. But yeah, I kind of like the option to go with Alolan Persian and your own Primal Groudon, because if you like this, so the Persian is on the field, and with the option to go for Parting Shot, you can always kind of scout out and see, is there a Rayquaza switching in for my opponent, what does the Kyogre do, and then yeah, send in a Pokemon accordingly.
I think so. Speaking about sending Pokemon in, Kimo started with Kyogre and Incineroar, and Alessio started with Yveltal and Persian, so there is already some Fake Out pressure on the line.
Yep, so both of them starting with their Fake Out user, and they could just trade Fake Out, but most of the time you kind of want to reposition yourself in a situation like this. I think leading off with Kyogre is also something that Kimo did in the previous set that he played against Melvin to great success, because you can always kind of try to net that Groudon switch in with like a Water type attack while also switching in your own Rayquaza, though I think, yeah, with Parting Shot there's a little more flexibility on Alessio's side.
And we do see the Protect from Kyogre coming. And Alolan Persian straight up goes for the Fake Out into Kyogre, and Yveltal starts off with a Snarl, and I think now this is where the positioning already starts.
Yeah, free turn for the Incineroar essentially. I mean, didn't really take too much damage and will probably U-turn out. Yep, there it is. Does a little bit of damage to the Alolan Persian, but thanks to Fur Coat, Persian is able to take that attack despite being weak to it. So now let's see what Kimo decides to bring in here. I wouldn't be surprised if it's something that can like do a little bit of damage. For example, the Tapu Koko would be a prime, like a nice Pokemon to send in here. No, just goes with the Rayquaza, and yeah, that really threatens away Alessio's Groudon to come in. Though again, with Parting Shot, that is one option that Alessio has to kind of scout out and see what Kimo is doing.
Yeah, I think Alessio got a good positioning. We've seen Yveltal got Snarl, and usually Yveltals with Snarl tend to be really bulky. Yeah. So he can start to slow the pace of the Kyogre down by lowering its special attack, and that Persian might even have a Dark MC, and if you do that, you can later on heal up your Yveltal again if you want to, if you just whistle down the opponent Pokemon enough. And but Persian straight up goes the offensive route and starts foul-playing the Rayquaza.
Okay, now let's see what happens here. Rayquaza not opting to go for the Mega Evolution. Just a Dragon Ascent into the Yveltal, but if that is followed up with an attack by that Kyogre, then that will definitely knock out the Yveltal. And yeah, we can see how much damage that Dragon Ascent did. Enough to bring Yveltal below 25% of its HP, activating the Aguav Berry. But that also means that Yveltal recovers a lot of HP, and with Snarl after the special defense drop, that is enough to knock out Rayquaza, and that's a big damage potential gone from Kimo's team.
That was like a really crucial turn, wasn't it? Like, now Kimo knows that Yveltal is really bulky. Yep. He's able to stand that Dragon Ascent plus a Water type attack. In the meantime, Yveltal comes Snarl, and Kimo is now on his back foot, taking out the Alolan Persian, but Alessio brought himself in a good position, right?
Yeah, missing the Yveltal there with the Origin Pulse, of course. Alessio must be really happy about this, because this gives him the opportunity to go for yet another Snarl the next turn. Kimo, of course, wants to stop that, sends out Incineroar for a potential Fake Out into that Yveltal, but Nihilego is one of those Pokemon that does really well against Incineroar, and one of the most common sets is the Rockium Z on the Nihilego, because that can one-hit knock out the Incineroar with Continental Crush. So if that is something that Alessio carries, then he can do a lot of damage this turn.
And Nihilego got a really high special attack stat, so after one or two Snarls, it might not be threatened to get knocked out by the Kyogre. whilst Yveltal can just snarl in the meantime and slow the pace down, and that's why Kimo decides to preserve the Kyogre for the late game and send in the more defensively orientated Ferrothorn.
Yep, Ferrothorn, a nice switch in here against both Yveltal and the Nihilego. Fake Out has to be used on the Nihilego to prevent that Rock-type attack to go off on the Incineroar, but Yveltal doesn't go for a Snarl again. Now sets up the Tailwind to ensure that Alessio's Pokemon, who are already seen to be relatively fast, all three of Yveltal, Persian and the Nihilego, but now also ensuring that no matter what happens, they will definitely be outspeeding everything.
And now I think Alessio can start trading. Incineroars usually tend to not run Protect, so if he doubles up in that slot, either Kyogre is going to take a really good chunk of damage, and obviously Ferrothorn is trying to hit that Nihilego as hard as possible.
Yeah, and you gotta imagine Alessio probably also has that Primal Groudon still waiting in the back, and that means that it's very, very difficult for Kimo to win either way, because yeah, he has already lost his Rayquaza, no way of resetting the weather except with his own Primal Kyogre. So yeah, Alessio in a very strong position. Now setting up the substitute, therefore, yeah, he's able to withstand a Gyro Ball coming out from this Ferrothorn, and Nihilego will be around for another turn.
Yeah, I really like that substitute play. Like, he just covers his options. It's kind of like a Protect, but you're able to protect the next turn. So if somehow Incineroar comes in again later on, you don't waste your Protect turns, which is like a really safe play and a really good option, especially on a Groudon team. And just to recap, we got Ferrothorn and Kyogre on Kimo's side on the field, and he has to pull through with Kyogre through Yveltal and a potential Groudon in the back, Alessio, and Rayquaza is already taken out.
Yeah, like the only thing that keeps Kimo in this game would probably be his Ferrothorn, but yeah, if it is that Primal Groudon waiting for Alessio in the back, then that is sure to carry a Fire-type attack. So I think, yeah, Kimo might already be thinking about the next game, though maybe he also, once you just get confirmation that, there is the Groudon, he nods, and that's a nod of approval, but not a nod of satisfaction, so he knows that this game is probably out of his reach, but he can regroup and maybe come up with some different approach for the second game.
I think so. I think Alessio did like really show, okay, this is my match plan. I'm gonna use Snarl with my Yveltal just to slow your Kyogre down, so I can switch and stuff more safely. And I'll bring the Groudon in the back after I took out the Rayquaza. So maybe Kimo needs to adapt and keep that Rayquaza on the field as long as possible and preserve it for longer.
Yeah, and there we have it. The Z-Dance is coming out, and let's see where it is going. It is going to power up the Nihilego, of course, so we are going to see that Continental Crush where we were talking about before. And let's see whether he predicted this Incineroar to switch in and targeted the right slot. There it goes. Yeah, into the Incineroar, and Kimo once again nodding there, and Alessio, wow, nice plays coming out from him. Will get the clean KO on the Incineroar, one-hit KO. So even though Incineroar, the switch-in was nice, he got intimidated off on the Primal Groudon, but now the Nihilego gets a special attack boost, and it might be knocked out in the process though, but oh no, Gyro Ball going into what was the Yveltal and now is the Primal Groudon, and Kimo shaking his head now down to his last two Pokemon, and Alessio, a really, really strong performance here in this first game.
I really liked how he played it, and I really like the sets. Like, I really do love the Grand EMC Nihilego, because thanks to its ability, Beast Boost, after you get the first knockout, you start rolling from there, your special attack rises, and I've already seen some fancy sets with more speed. So you started more like not a nuke, but a late game sweeper. So you're faster, and you obviously outpace some choice scarf users, and you clean up with that one. Really nice choice.
Yeah, yes, Beast Boost already always boosts the stat with, that is higher, so you can train your Pokemon specifically in a way to make sure that you get the boost that you want. Now we're seeing the Primal Groudon just switching back in favor of the Yveltal. The Nihilego will just protect. At this point, it's just about getting that Primal Groudon back in once again. Origin Pulse will be coming out. Let's see if it can connect to the Yveltal this time. Would be interesting information of how much damage it does, but no, once again, missing the Origin Pulse on that Yveltal.
Kimo is still playing for his outs, although they are really, really low. And now we are at this point of the game where it's really crucial to gather as much information as possible. You know that obviously, Marcus, you've played loads of those best of threes, and it's really all about how much damage does this attack do to this, when does the barrier activate, how to double up into one Pokemon, which secret move there's in the back, and stuff like that. And I guess this is what's happening at the moment.
Yeah, already talking about a potential second game, I think something that is interesting to note about Alessio's team is the fact that he really doesn't have a strong answer against something like a Trick Room with the 4 Pokemon he selected. But if there is no Trick Room inside, his Pokemon are really, really fast. He has Tailwind to double up their speed even further, and with the defensive approach that Kimo selected for this first game, it's very, very difficult to keep up with the pace here. Of course, Ferrothorn is really nice against Nihilego in a 1v1 situation, but if there's always like a Primal Groudon next to it, then it's really difficult to get going. And while Ferrothorn might finally be able to get that KO on the Nihilego, it might be a little too late as Groudon came in on the Ice Beam. So yeah, nicely done by Kimo predicting that, but yeah, it's just not enough.
Well, still playing for outs though, like if that Groudon was a special Groudon, for example, and the only fire type move it might know is Eruption, for example, and the Kyogre gets like really high damage with a potential critical hit, so that it really slows down the damage the Eruption does. Ferrothorn might activate a Berry, get back to health, and this might be one out he still got. Maybe he got Leech Seed as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Just to make sure he gets some health back from Yveltal later on. I really like how Kimo is still, and this is what good players really do. Okay, there is one chance I can go for, I'll go for it.
Yeah, definitely. And even though it might not work like 99 times, then the one time it works, yeah, you'll feel really great about yourself. So Ice Beam now coming out into the Yveltal, does not knock it out though, and Fire Punch. Okay, so now we got confirmation. Yep, it's a physical variant. Ferrothorn will go down, and with that will like all the hopes of Kimo for his first game.
Well, really well play on this on his end. I really like that. I always like that when people play for players play for the outs. It's like confirming how good of a player you really are. If you don't just give up and say, okay, I might have lost. If you keep, I know there is one way to go, and you keep doing that. I really like seeing that.
Yeah, it just really goes to show, like, hey, okay, you have your Primal Ground, but yeah, you gotta show me your Fire type move if you want to win this battle. So, yeah, now as the last turn of the battle plays out, Alessio will be winning, but yeah, I think Kimo, he has some options still left in his team. If we take another look at his Pokemon, he did not bring the Tapu Koko to this battle, which I think would be a pretty strong choice, considering that it can outspeed all of Yveltal, Nihilego, and Persian, the fast Pokemon of Alessio. And it also does a lot of damage to Yveltal with, like, say, a boosted Thunderbolt, or to Persian with Dazzling Gleam.
Yeah, I think so as well. That Tapu Koko usually they tend to run a Sea Crystal, either a Electrum Sea or a Therium Sea. Both would be fitting to take out either Persian, Yveltal, like you said, and it's gonna be really tough. You usually want to lack Koko at home against Groudon teams, but in this case, it might really be the pick for Kimo.
Yeah, I think so too. And then the other thing that Kimo has to keep in mind, or be a little more aware of, is keeping his Rayquaza around for longer. Looks like, oh, he has made a plan, already selecting it. Yeah, Alessio's also like, oh, okay, well, that was quick. So it looks like his opponent has a plan for this. So yeah, Kimo probably taking the last couple of turns of that previous battle to kind of come up with an idea of how he wants to approach this game. Yeah. And yeah, definitely needs to keep out, or well, he needs to watch out for his Rayquaza a little more. I felt like that just went down a little too easily in the last game. Yeah. So now he has seen how much damage it can do to the Yveltal. Maybe with that boost it would have gotten from the Mega Evolution, maybe that could have been enough for the KO. So that is something that Alessio also has to consider and be aware of. But yeah, it's unclear of who has like the matchup advantage in my opinion, though I still think after the first battle that Alessio definitely has all the tools that he needs.
Yeah, I think he got a lot more options. The Cresselia might have Trick Room, and if Kimo decides, okay, I'll let my Ferrothorn at home, so Cresselia comes down to really shine, and it's more like you have to guess. It's really pick dependent. What do I bring to this, and it changes the whole match. Totally, like if it's going for the Trick Room instead of fast mode.
Yeah, and there we have it on the screen. probably the one Pokemon that Kimo could use to come back into this best of 3.
Yeah.
It's Tapu Koko, and yeah, sitting there as his lucky charm, and maybe that's what he needs, because yeah, Yveltal is pretty difficult for him to take out, and yeah, same for the Persian as well. I mean, Tapu Koko doesn't do that well against Nihilego, because Nihilego's special defense is so high, but still, yeah. Let's see what both of these guys came up with. It looks like Alessio now also has selected his Pokemon, and we will be jumping straight into this game.
There you go, the Tapu Koko leading for Kimo, partnered up with Rayquaza, and on Alessio's side we see the Nihilego and the Yveltal.
Yeah, so both of them switching things up, and looks like no Intimidate inside, or like no I don't know, Fake Out or Parting Shot inside for Alessio. So let's see whether he brought the Salamence that he also has, because if he doesn't, this Rayquaza is going to do a ton of damage to this Yveltal.
Yeah, I'm really curious. Like Alessio probably predicted, like kind of the Tapu Koko lead. Tapu Koko is one of those Pokemons you tend to lead with, because you don't want to bring it in. It doesn't do well in taking hits, and doesn't want to get its speed lowered or its special attack drop. But we see a immediate switch from Alessio.
Okay.
Yveltal's coming back to him, and Groudon is entering the battlefield.
Yeah, he's probably predicting some sort of electric type attack going into that slot, but now let's see. I think, yeah, Kimo probably going for some sort of like Dragon Ascent, but at the same time he also has to watch out from that Continental Crush that could be coming out from the Nihilego into the Rayquaza.
Yeah, that's why he really wants that Mega Evolution right now, just to lower the damage the Rayquaza is going to take after the Continental Crush. But Kimo might just ignore the Rayquaza in the first turn, predicting a Protect or something, and straight up. Okay. No, he plays it really safe. That was a really safe play.
Yeah, protecting an Nihilego, but now where does Rayquaza target? And oh, we're actually going to see a Z move straight away. It's actually the Twinkle Tackle, so not the Electrium Z, but Twinkle Tackle coming out from the Tapu Koko will most likely go into that Primal Groudon that just switched in. So it will resist the attack, of course, but yeah, with those Z moves, they're just so powerful, so still will do a little bit of chip damage. Yeah. Probably enough for a Dragon Ascent to get the KO? I'm not really sure, but yeah, let's see what the Rayquaza decided to go for, as I'm really curious. Actually, it's a Dragon Claw.
Interesting. Like, Dragon Claw doesn't lower your defensive stats later on, and is almost as powerful as Dragon Ascent, which is really interesting. Nihilego's defensive stat is not as good as special defensive stat, so if the Rayquaza is really offensively, it might get the KO with Dragon Claw Nihilego.
Yeah, now we're getting into like terrain where I'm not really sure how much damage Dragon Claw does to Nihilego. Like, Dragon Claw, not a very common move on Rayquaza, and yeah, Nihilego, not a very common Pokemon, so yeah, I don't really know, and I'm not sure whether both Kimo and Alessio know this. Probably Kimo, though, the one who can judge this a little bit better, as he's played with this Choice Band Mega Rayquaza for quite a while. Alessio decides that he doesn't want to find out and is calling back his Nihilego and switches in Persian instead.
Yeah, again, Alessio is playing this really safe. He doesn't want to take damage, and Kimo is trying to make use of that by Volt switching into the Persian slot now, and being able to position the board again. Like, he doesn't want to take too much damage from Groudon, obviously, and that's why he sends in Incineroar, just to get off that Intimidate. Yeah,
nicely done here by Kimo, bringing in this, like, knowing that, okay, Primal Groudon is already on the field. The other slot protected the previous turn, so it was pretty safe to go in there with that Volt Switch, and yeah, Dragon Claw to pick up the pieces. Persian will go down, and yeah, Alessio down to only 3 Pokemon, but with Precipice Blades could retaliate right back, as this does a lot of damage to Incineroar.
Oh, this takes it out in one hit, thanks to a critical hit.
Yeah, so we're in a 3 against 3 situation. Incineroar just joining the battle, already back to its trainer. And, well, with Groudon on the field, though, now that might be an opportunity for Kimo to now bring out his Kyogre, as that would be able to override the Delta Stream that is currently on and do a lot of damage to that Groudon.
He would have preferred to have that Fake Out pressure, because that Dragon Claw, you could just start dealing damage with Dragon Claw and bring everything into a range where maybe Extreme Speed is enough to pick him up later on if he switches Rayquaza out. But never mind. Incineroar is gone and Kyogre is entering the field and is as threatening.
Yeah, there we have the Kyogre on the field. Now all 4 of our legendary Pokemon that are in this battle. And we've seen that Yveltal outspeeds the Kyogre, so that means that Alessio could try and go for something like a Tailwind if he really wanted to, as I doubt Dragon Claw is knocking out the Yveltal in one hit. He could also try and go for maybe on the offensive, like maybe Foul Play would do a lot of damage to Rayquaza, but yeah, I feel like Kimo played himself into a pretty strong position, still has the Tapu Koko in the back as well, but now he has to ensure that he doesn't, this match doesn't slip off his hands, because if this Yveltal sets up the Tailwind, all of a sudden Alessio would have the speed advantage once again, and yeah, he still has that powerful Nihilego with the Continental Crush waiting in the back, so yeah, this one's still open.
It's really open, but I think Kimo is on the side where he can make the safe plays at the moment, and Alessio has to answer. The only problem Kimo got is do I get my Rayquaza out once again just to change the moves? And Alessio just wants to reset the weather once again. Yeah.
And the Water Spout coming out from this Kyogre, this should probably knock out the Nihilego, so Alessio would then be down to his last 2 Pokemon. Water Spout coming out and is a one-hit knockout on the Nihilego, so Yveltal decided to just protect, to stick around for another turn. I mean, now he gets to reset the weather by sending in his Primal Groudon, and then next turn, he can definitely go for something like a Tailwind, so he would have the speed advantage, Alessio that is, but then he's down to his last 2 Pokemon, and he would need Yveltal and Groudon to carry this match home for him, so it's still unclear who is coming out on top. That Rayquaza won't be able to protect, so that's something to note, because then, yeah, Kimo it's more difficult for him to stall out the limited turns of Tailwind.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think the way this is going to play out is Alessio will set up Tailwind and then has to win within the next couple of turns, or else, yeah, Kimo is going to win.
Yeah, and he has to make sure not to take enough damage to be knocked up by Extreme Speed in return.
Yeah.
If Kimo is just trying to double up into that Yveltal with an Ice Beam and a Dragon Claw, for example, the Yveltal might activate its berry, might not.
Yeah.
This is something we need to find out, and if he manages to get Yveltal into Extreme Speed range, Rayquaza is something that can surely win the game later on.
Yeah, so Kyogre wants to switch out because, yeah, in the extremely harsh sunlight, doesn't really want to play. So instead, we're going to see a switch into Tapu Koko. No protects, of course, coming out from Alessio. Dragon Claw will do a decent chunk to that Yveltal, but not enough to knock it out. And there is that Tailwind that we mentioned before.
There's the Tailwind, and this HP bar looks like it might be just an Extreme Speed range.
Yeah, but unfortunately for Kimo, if this Tapu Koko gets knocked out, yeah, by the Precipice Blades, unfortunately now that Rayquaza cannot switch out anymore, so Kimo now also down to his last 2 Pokemon, and he will be able to set up his weather, but yeah, it's still tough there. Rayquaza, though, fortunately for him, immune to Precipice Blades, and with the weather, that means that yeah, it could be impossible for that Groudon to hit the Rayquaza, because usually Groudon only carry ground and fire type attacks, and both of them cannot be used against Rayquaza under the rain right now.
So this is a really cool situation where Alessio set up the Tailwind, got the speed advantage, but Kimo still got better chances. He doesn't care about the speed. If he targets down Yveltal, and he gets the knockout on Yveltal, the game is over. On the other hand, you don't want to have a Groudon non-protecting in this weather, but he's just trying to get that early knockout on
no
the
protect
Kyogre.
On the Kyogre. I'm not sure if I agree with that play, but maybe he was afraid of something like a Stone Edge from that Groudon. Either way, Foul Play and Precipice Blades are enough to get the knockout on Kyogre, so now it's all down to this Rayquaza. Now let's see where the Dragon Claw is gonna go. Dragon Claw going into the
Yveltal. Very clever play there.
Yeah.
And now we are down to Kimo with a Dragon Claw Rayquaza, and this is where Dragon Claw really shines because it doesn't lower your defense stats.
Yeah, definitely. It's been around for a couple of turns with Dragon Clawing here and there, but now it's gonna face its toughest challenge yet with that Groudon. I would assume that Fire Punch is the move of choice here for Alessio. Still has the chance to burn.
Yeah.
And yeah, once again, I don't really know what the what the damage calculation is between the two here. Alessio actually protecting here. Doesn't want to take advantage of his own tailwind turns. I mean, maybe he wants to try and play it out. So yeah, stall out the PP of Kimo's Dragon Claw, but yeah, okay, I'm not sure if I agree with that strategy. I'd rather probably would have liked to see him go for Fire Punch to try and get that burn. But yeah, now the tailwind is over, and yeah, Dragon Claw is gonna hit first, and yeah, let's see how much
hits are enough from that Dragon Claw. But we are still seeing some protects come in, and Rayquaza finally nets this Dragon Claw onto the Groudon, and this looks like one more Dragon Claw is enough to take that Groudon down.
Yeah, looks like it, and yeah, Alessio just trying to go for some more protects. I mean, I didn't count, but I feel like Rayquaza should still have a couple more Dragon Claws left.
But this might also just be stalling out some time, thinking about the match plan. Give me just some more seconds to think about what am I going to adjust to win this and to secure my top cup place.
Well, yeah, so there we have a Dragon Claw knocking out this Primal Groudon.
There you go.
Kimo ties up the series 1-1. Yeah, really nice usage there of the Choice Band Rayquaza, and you were hyping it up the entire time, and now we could really see why it is that strong. Didn't even need to rely on his most common moves, Extreme Speed and Dragon Ascent. Instead, Dragon Claw here shining in this matchup.
To be honest, this is a choice I never came up with, but it's a really clever one.
Yeah.
Dragon Claw is a really strong move, and it showed why. It basically, this was one move that won him the game.
Yeah, definitely. It did a lot of damage to that Yveltal, knocked out the Primal Groudon, always threatened the Nihilego, knocked out the Alolan Persian, so really, yeah, it did a lot of work here in this game. So yeah, really, really well done by Kimo, and I think that, yeah, the Choice Band Rayquaza is definitely his key to victory in this fight.
Definitely. He just has to make sure that if Alessio is trying to go for a more defensive route now, like, Kimo has to make sure to get past the Cresselia, especially when it's paired up with Persian. Maybe Alessio wants to even bring Salamence just to have that Intimidate and to know the attack stat of the Rayquaza. And on the same side, he has to make sure not to get hit by too many other moves in the meantime.
Yeah, I think unfortunately for Alessio, even though I really, really like Persian, I feel like it wasn't really doing all too much here in the past game. So maybe I would like to see that Salamence come out. For the Intimidate, it's outspeeding Rayquaza. We have confirmation that it is holding a Choice Band, therefore it cannot protect. And I think, yeah, in that matchup, Salamence definitely can do a lot of work against it. Has to watch out for that Twinkle tackle from Tapu Koko, of course. So it's not obvious here whether it's worth bringing it to the battle or not. But yeah, Alessio unfortunately doesn't have any more time to figure it out because this is the last game of the Best of 3 set.
And we see Kimo leading with Incineroar and once again Rayquaza, and Alessio is going for more defensively route with Yveltal and Cresselia. It's been a long time since I last saw Cresselia on stream. Yeah,
Cresselia, I mean, still a strong Pokemon. Sometimes though, nowadays, the Trick Room setters usually are also Steel types because that's just a little better against Xerneas. But with some of the choices that Alessio made with his team, with the Nihilego and the Primal Groudon, probably feels safe against Xerneas anyway and can afford to run that Cresselia.
And now Mega Rayquaza starts attacking right off.
Yeah.
It stays in. It does the Mega Evolution.
No Intimidate, and we might just see Dragon Ascent this time around though.
Let's have a look. Incineroar is going for the Fake Out into Cresselia, not wanting it to set up Trick Room, and Rayquaza starts doing what it does best.
I think this is going to be into the Yveltal slot, and if that is a clean knockout, this is literally huge. But no, Kimo probably expected this to knock out based on the damage that regular Rayquaza did earlier, but no, the berry activates on Yveltal, and if that is a foul play, this might already knock out the Rayquaza straight away. Yep, there is the foul play, boosted by Dark Aura, obviously, and with the defense drop, Rayquaza is going down. Oh no, and we were saying it, Mega Rayquaza, of course, being the one key Pokemon on Kimo's team to power through Alessio's team, already removed in the very first turn, and Alessio has to feel really, really good about his chances now.
This was the key in the first match, getting rid of Rayquaza as soon as possible. Kimo managed to position that Rayquaza in the second game really well and let it attack straight away, and now it got knocked out on the first turn. this might be crucial, and Kimo sends in Tapu Koko now.
Yeah, of course it's not over yet, with Tapu Koko, of course, outspeeding the Yveltal and the Cresselia as well. So, yeah, we've yet to see the item of Incineroar, I think, on Kimo's end. Maybe if that also was a Z-move, then he might have the potential to knock out the Cresselia in one hit as well. So Kimo definitely has some damage potential on the board right now, but Alessio, once again, removing the Mega Rayquaza turn 1, that must feel so good, and he still will have that Primal Groudon in the back, and it's going to be very, very difficult for Kimo to beat that Primal Groudon.
Yeah, Kimo's route is pretty clear now. Like, he has to take out at least 2 Pokemon as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So Alessio cannot switch up the weather anymore.
Yep.
And you have to make sure Trick Room is not coming up, because if Cresselia starts skill swapping later on and stuff like that, it's going to be really difficult for Kimo. So his route is pretty clear, and Alessio got way more options at the moment.
Yeah, let's see. So Wall Switch correctly going into the Cresselia, also protecting here, so it will still be around for some Dark Aura boosting his opponent. First of all, the Primal Kyogre is coming in. Kimo's shaking his head. I always like to follow up with that, because his facial expressions always kind of give away what is happening. So let's see though. Primal Kyogre probably didn't want to be on the field right now, but due to the mechanic with Wall Switch, it had to.
Yeah.
We are seeing the Z move there. Okay, Incendium Seed probably powering up that malicious Moonsault from the Incineroar. It is boosted by Dark Aura, and if that's going into the Cresselia, that could be enough for a one-hit KO.
This might be a really crucial turn now.
Yeah, wow. Okay. Did not see that coming. That's probably what Alessio is thinking.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is going to be a KO, and all of a sudden, both of them down to the last 3 Pokemon.
This is going to be really interesting now, Marcus. This changed a lot. The Trick Room option is gone for Alessio. There's still the threatening Tapu Koko in the back. On the other hand, like, if Alessio is starting sending in that Groudon, he gets up his weather. Tapu Koko doesn't want to switch in, and you don't want to let a Pokemon go down, right? Yeah,
like, the only problem I can see for Kimo right now is the fact that due to Wall Switch, he was forced to switch in his Kyogre, and right now he would much rather have the Tapu Koko on the board. As he's shaking his head, even though this turn looked like it went really well, he understands that even though he was able to call his opponent's move, knock out the Cresselia, he's still in a pretty tough position, because Alessio now has the weather up. Kyogre needs to spend a turn to switch out, but then what are you going to switch into the Tapu Koko? Well, you're going to get Precipice Blades, and the Yveltal can just set up Tail Wind right away. So in this past turn, maybe Kimo needed to instead have the Tapu Koko stay on the field for a little while longer. Dazzling Gleam probably instead to get the Cresselia into KO range. And even though this last turn looked really good for him, Kimo understood that it didn't work. Now he's crossing his fingers. Let's see what he's hoping for. Probably some Precipice Blades misses, but Nihilego now joining the field for the first time for Alessio, as Kyogre has to switch out, but you never want to be switching your Tapu Koko into a Primal Groudon.
And you want that. You really need that miss, but it looks like it connects to both Pokemon, and there you go.
2 KOs, and Alessio now 3 against 1. He can swap out his Primal Groudon once again to reset the weather in his favor. And while Kimo definitely, even after losing the Mega Rayquazas, he still tried to stay in the game, got a nice KO on that Cresselia. In the end, his positioning was just like a little bit off, and that's just those are the details at high level play where you can just kind of consider, like, even though it looks like, oh wow, he doubled up into the correct slot. Even with that, knocking out the Cresselia, that allowed Primal Groudon to come in for free, and that also meant that the Tapu Koko had to switch out into the Primal Kyogre, and in the end that just played into Alessio's favor. So just playing it out safe. You don't want to risk missing all your moves or whatever, so swapping out into that Yveltal, and we're probably gonna see that Continental Crush coming out from the Nihilego. No, just a Protect to ensure that you have all the damage potential you want next turn.
Yeah, and Kyogre is going for Water Spout, and that Protect is really clever, because that Yveltal now goes down, and the Groudon can come in for free, and now next turn Nihilego can secure with a strong C-move for straight up attack, or play it safe even with substitute.
Nihilego is now protected from the extremely really harsh sunlight, and so you don't even have to worry about missing Precipice Blades and so on. So nicely done there by Alessio to finish up this best of 3 pretty cleverly. And yeah, Kimo tried his best. He was able to win in this matchup that I would call a little bit favored for Alessio, but now in the end he will fall to this unique team for Alessio, and Alessio will be moving on to a 11-2 standing. Some cheering here from the crowd, from his Italian friends and supporters, and yeah, Kimo falling down to a 10-3, still in contention for top cut, but Alessio now looking really, really strong.
Yeah, I think so. This was like I like those matches where it comes down to like one move to choose, and as Kimo nodded right away after he locked in, he was like,